All right, day one, we've got the lamb, and we just had to chase Chase, because the lamb's name is going to be Chase.
Oh God.
Up the mountain, up the ridge, and I lost track of him several times. I had to walk on down the mountain, then back up the mountain, trying to find him, and I got a ride from a lady named Faye, and apparently he was stopping traffic. This is him right here. I'll show him to you in a minute. He was stopping traffic over on South Crest Road. So we finally caught up with him, and he was juking me, and I was running to get him, and he juked back the other direction. And I finally chased him up onto a mansion, into a corner, and a nice family came out and helped me scoop him up. So we cornered him in the corner, and finally we got him. But this is just day one. And I'm going to show.
Let's go look at Chase. Hey, Chase.
He is scared, but he is in the corner right now.
You can just flip the camera around.
Well, it won't let me do that from recording. I don't know if y'all can see him. There he is. He's so terrified.
Mark it back up.
All right. Day one.
All right, shalom. So I wanted to share today our experience with Passover and unleavened bread. Now this Passover and unleavened bread was definitely interesting. There were definitely a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and I just kind of wanted to share what we learned from this particular Passover experience. So this year was really interesting. We had family come from Miami and Orlando and New York. So they all came here to Tennessee, and we all gathered together. We fellowship regularly on the Shabbats and things like that online, and it was just great to all come together. And we've all fellowshipped in person together different times, but it was interesting to all just come together and fellowship here in Tennessee. So we did that this year. And it was a very good experience, a very interesting experience, and I just really wanted to share that today. And I wanted to start off just kind of going over our Passover first. You know, we definitely had a very good time. We had sheep, we got lamb for the first time, so even that experience was an experience in itself. We had 2 lambs. We had a black lamb and a white lamb, and I'll probably let my husband tell you the whole story behind that, because that was a very interesting story in itself. How him dealing with the lamb, and him literally, like, he was learning a lot about about being a shepherd, pretty much, literally learning how to be a shepherd, and learning, you know, what it takes to have animals, because we've never had livestock like that before. I mean, we've had dogs and stuff like that, but we had lamb, and we had them for 3 weeks before. You know, we had to get the lamb 3 weeks before, because, you know, they weren't going to be available and all this stuff. So we had the lambs, we had to take care of them for 3 weeks before the actual Passover. So it was very interesting. That whole story was very interesting in itself. So I'll probably let him tell his story, but he was definitely learning how to be a shepherd. You know, he thought he was going to be able to carry them doggone things like dogs, okay? He had leashes and everything. He thought they were just going to follow right behind him. It was just so funny. Like, that thing was hilarious. But anyway, I will show probably a little. I'll let him tell his story. But anyway, so yeah, we had 2 lambs, a black one and a white one. And we, you know, had to build a little thing for them in the back porch for them to stay. We had to feed them. We had to, you know, literally take care of them for 3 weeks. So that was very interesting. We allowed the children to participate in that. You know, he would have my daughter go in there and get them, and because we would have to bring them out so they could eat on the grass. We had hay for them as well, but we would also let them eat from the backyard. So she would have to go in there and get them out and do the whole process. So it was a learning process for everybody, and so that was beautiful. And you know, that the whole lamb situation was a story in itself. So we had the lambs this year. We, like I said, we had the mishpacah come down, and it was a beautiful thing. You know, we had, when you have family, this is the family that even came over last Passover, a family that we're really close to. So, you know, it was very, very fun. We were all in this house, one house together. We have a 4-bedroom, and if you can imagine, we alone have seven of us all together. Yeah, 7 of us all together, and then our family, our brother and sister, they have 5 children, and they have 5 children as well. So it's them 2 and then they're 5, so they also have 7. So they came and stayed, and then we had a brother from New York. It was just him, his one body, and then we had another family, and it was husband, wife, and then their grandson. So it was, if you can imagine, it was very full. Many different personalities, many different people. And, you know, it's not like we're not fully used to each other, because we fellowship all the time, so we know each other in that aspect. But it's different when you come together in a group, you know. And yeah, so we had a great time. You know, it was fun, you know, seeing the different personalities in the children, seeing the different personalities in the adults, and working together in different things. You know, the men are having to work together with the lamb and skinning the lamb and preparing the lamb and preparing even outside, and, you know, getting everything together. And the women having to work together. You know, we're preparing food and we're doing all these other things, and the children working together and doing their different things. So it was definitely interesting. And, you know, as we, you know, when we were doing the Passover and having the lamb and doing the skinning, you know, watching it, and, you know, we actually had a lot of favor too. I want to say that we had a lot of favor coming from our neighbors. You know, our next door neighbors really looked out for us. They really helped us a lot. So we had, yeah, in the process of doing even the Passover, we had a lot of favor. You know, our neighbors were helping us out. They were, any little thing they could do to help us, they were willing to help. You know, they told us where we could get logs from. They could tell you where to get. I mean, they were just helping us with many, many different things. So that was very appreciated. You know what I mean? Because if we weren't looked at as like, what the hell are they doing? You know, what strange stuff are they doing? You know what I mean? They were really helpful, and our neighbors even came out and watched the Passover, which is, you know, they are Hebrews. They don't know it, but, you know, we've talked to them about certain things before, so they, you know, they were out even coming and witnessing it. And I think that was beautiful, because I also think that scripture, you know, all Israel had to witness the Passover, so they came out and they really witnessed it. And I don't know, I just thought it was a beautiful thing. There were so many people helping us out, you know, the men trying to get everything together. And, you know, they weren't just like, oh, okay, well, this is, you know, my husband, I mean, you know, they weren't looking at it in the perspective of, okay, this is their house, so we're going to let them do everything. No, everybody was pitching in. Everybody's, you know, taking the initiative to go out there. Because my husband was having to come back and forth to school, obviously on the days that were okay for him to work, he was out going back and forth. So, you know, they were in the backyard getting it all done. By the time he came home, it was done. And, you know, they're getting ready to get the Passover together. It was just a beautiful thing to see the men working together. And there were hiccups. There were things that happened. Even the brother and sister, at one point their car messed up. They had to get a part for their car and all of these things. But these are things that trip you up and can frustrate you. And it's like, you know, they drove all the way down here, you know, their car messes up, and, you know, that can be frustrating in itself. Like, now what we're going to do? We're going to get the money for this and this and this. But it turned out favor with that as well. You know, they ended up buying a part that was even more expensive. And then one of our neighbors said, hey, you can get it here for a lot cheaper. So they did that. They were even able to save money. So it was just a small hiccup that was fixed just like that. So it was a very interesting experience. So there were a lot of things that were going on. You know, we had the lamb, we had you know, even witnessing the actual lamb itself and all the children gathering around, and they were not at all like thinking like, oh, poor lamb. Not in that sense, like before, you know, I know a lot of people would be like, oh, well, the kids had to witness. It's like, yes, I mean, it's no different from when you go hunting. People take their children all the time to go hunting. We're just so accustomed and so used to going to the store and buying meat, and we don't realize, okay, there's a process that had to happen for you to even have the meat that's in your hand. So we're just so not used to that anymore. So actually having to take care of an animal, then actually having to slaughter it and kill it and eat it and all of that stuff, it happens. It's normal. It's not weird at all. Really, how we operate now is more weird than that. So I don't know, but it was very interesting. And you know, we slaughtered the lamb. We you know, in the process of slaughtering the lamb, I think that it was a surreal moment, you know, because when you're there and when you're witnessing it and when you see the lamb, you know, literally dying, and you tie that into with the Mashiach, and you understand, you know, the things that he had to suffer, and you're thinking about the Mashiach, and you're thinking about everything that he had to go through, and you're just tying it all together. So it was an emotional thing, you know, it was a very emotional time when that whole process was happening, and us watching it, and you know, and it literally taking its last breath and being hung up and being, you know, the men starting to do the whole process. And it was very, very interesting. And it just helped us to understand a little bit more. It helped us understand our people a little bit more, and their culture, and how we used to operate. And you just understand it a little bit more when you experience it for yourself, and when you actually do the slaughtering, and you actually are doing the whole process. It was good. It was a good experience that we all got to experience together. You know, that was our first Passover, our first slaughtering of the lamb. We all got to experience that together, and that's a beautiful thing. And so, and even with the lamb, you know, doing the process, us studying and trying to figure out exactly what we need to do, how we need to slaughter it. So it all being our first time, we were learning a lot. We were digging into scriptures. We're having, fruitful conversations about, okay, what do we need to do? Some of us felt like we weren't supposed to keep the intestines in. Some of us felt like we were supposed to, and we were going back and forth on that. Like, okay, what do we need to do? And we're literally coming together, talking it out, discussing it. Like, I mean, it really felt like in the scripture type stuff, like, because we were disagreeing on some things, but it was a fruitful disagreement. It was as if, okay, we're just trying to get it right. We're trying to figure out what we need to do. So everybody's talking, putting their input on, getting research. We're working together as a team, and everything. We ended up all on one accord on what we need to do and how we need to do it. And that was a beautiful process in itself too. You know, the men were discussing it, and me and my sister, we were discussing, okay, well, we were going back and forth on just, okay, well, what do you think, you know, that's all good type of stuff. These are things that we're supposed to be doing and trying to figure it out. Are we going to agree right away every time? No, but the discussion and talking about it and trying to figure it out is what we're supposed to be doing. And that was good. And that was good. You know, we had a lot of situations like that, even in the moment of the men, you know, skinning the lamb and cutting it and all that stuff. They're going over how they should do it, and you know, having little disagreements while they doing it, but it was good disagreements, you know, like how brothers do, you know, messing with each other and you know, joking and all that stuff. So that it was a good experience, you know. The men worked together. Everybody was working together to get it done, and you just understand a lot when it comes to that. And when you're just witnessing it firsthand and seeing it, and it having a serious emotional thing, you know. And the men went back and forth with different ways on how we were going to cook the lamb. You know, my husband actually, it was a neighbor also who makes grills out of barrels and like shopping carts and all this stuff. Which it looked really good. He actually, you know, made it for us for just $85. So, and it looks really good. We still have it and still put it to use. you know, we were going on different things. The men built a pit, a fire pit in the backyard. They all worked together to build the pit. And we had different ways that we were going to do it. We were going to roast it. Our first initial thought was maybe to roast it over the fire pit with like 2 little stakes up, and where you can kind of turn the lamb, tie the lamb on the stick, and just kind of roast them around over the fire. We tried that, but that was going to take way too long, you know. So we went ahead and did with the grill. Did him over the grill. We were kind of worried about if he was going to fit. If he wasn't going to fit, we put him on the grill. You know, he ended up fitting and everything was working. So it was just, I mean, everything was coming together. We were going through the process. It wasn't like a full set out plan, like, oh, we're going to do this and this. No, it was happening in the things as it was happening. We were figuring out as it went. And it was really good. So, you know, so once we had the lamb, you know, we were having the feast. You know, the women were in here cooking. We would go back and forth looking at the men, seeing what they were up to, seeing how far the lamb had gotten. And it was just good. It was good, you know. So after the lamb was done, after we had our meal, you know, the children up here doing their thing. We were in the back, you know, because the sisters can sing. You know, our sister Kezia, sister Sophia, they can sing, you know, beautiful voices, you know. So we're all out there singing and just out around the fire pit, just singing and talking, and it's just beautiful. The singing was just beautiful, you know. Everybody singing. I mean, we all singing. Now half of us can't sing, but we all in there singing, and just, you know, it was just a beautiful moment. We were, I'm sure, loud enough for a lot of people to hear. Our neighbors actually said they heard us and that they were actually staying up listening to it because it was that beautiful to them. So it was definitely a beautiful, beautiful moment, you know. And of course we had the unleavened bread because they stayed for a week. So we had the unleavened bread. We were doing different things. So it was a beautiful time, though. Everybody working together and everything like that. And then everything was going well. Everything did go well, but we did have a hiccup and a point where it did get heated in here. I'm just gonna be honest. You know, when you have a bunch of different personalities, and strong personalities at that, then you're going to have disagreements, and it might not always be about the word. It might not even be. It might just be about certain things, the way certain people handle things, or the way certain people deal with certain things, or whatever it is. You can't always look at somebody and say, I love everything about that person 100%. You know what I mean? Like, when I say that, I mean there are flaws in all of us. So when we have those flaws, or we have those certain things, and some of them might not even be flaws, but it might be things that we have to learn to deal with. You know, there are certain personalities that there are certain things that you might not like about a certain person, or it's not like that you don't like the person, you just don't like maybe that the way they do a certain thing. Like, I mean, I use smacking for example. Like, it wasn't having nothing to do with smacking, but just for instance, if it's smacking, like, you could want to knock somebody out because they smacking in your ear so loud, and when they eat, it's just the most irritating thing. So it can be stuff like that, you know what I mean? So when you do have a lot of people, and, you know, the different personalities, different things, sometimes things clash, and it can be over the most simplest, craziest thing, but it could happen. And that did happen at one point. And things that you might have felt before, but you didn't say them, things, you know what I mean? You know how you have certain things about somebody that you might not like, but you kind of maybe just push it to the back of your head because, you know, you just want to keep the peace, or it might not be that big of a deal in the moment, but it does bother you or irritate you, but you just don't say it. So it was those type of things. So it was an argument, and it did get heated, and, you know, everybody was upset. But in the moment, when you have arguments like that, sometimes we can get into the point where we feel like, ugh, I just don't even want to fool with these people. I just don't even want to deal with these people. And it might be over something simple, because some people usually don't like conflict. Like, I mean, I can't stand conflict. I hate like conflict and disagreements and people like misconceptions and stuff like that. I can't stand it. But the fact of the matter is we're all people and those things happen. So the way that we deal with them is what matters. So, you know, it was heated. I mean, people were just going to leave. And, you know, I'm at the point where I'm like, well, I don't want to leave. I don't want people to leave, because if we leave on a bad note, then it's not going to be the same when you're trying to figure it out over the phone or figure it out over Skype or whatever. Sometimes you have to go through things in person and deal with them in person and not later. So we were able to do that. We were able to peel all the stuff aside and discuss it and tackle it and deal with it and get it together. You know. So we had it, and we, you know, people, the men were upset, the women were upset. We were all, you know, the women crying, and you know, it was something that I felt needed to happen, because things were said that needed to be said. So I think that it was needed. And even though you don't want things to have to get to that situation, sometimes they happen. I mean, we have arguments with our mothers or with our brothers, our blood brothers and sisters and stuff like that. And when we have arguments with them, a lot of times we're like, well, that's my mama, like, that's my brother, that's my sister, like, I'm not gonna not talk to them. So we have the same type of attitude for our brothers and sisters who are in the walk, because we're bound by more than just blood. We're bound by Yahuwah. So that's deeper than that. So just the same way that you wouldn't just cut your mama off completely, you can't just cut your brothers and sisters off completely, because that's your connection is Yahuwah. And it's deeper than what we think. Sometimes we look at our brothers and sisters that we grew up with as just like, okay, well, we can't stop connection with them. That's our family. Well, yeah, this is your family too. We can't, you know, a lot of times when we get into arguments, we feel like, it's easier to just throw your hands up and not deal with it and just disappear. Because honestly, that's how I felt after the situation. I'm just like, I just don't even want to fool with nobody. I just want to disappear. I was in a dark place for a few days, because I'm like, I just can't deal with this. It's just frustrating. Like, and this was after everything was resolved, and because we resolved it that same night. Like, we literally took care of it that night. Like the scripture says, we took care of it. We didn't go our separate ways, angry, mad, or not. None of that. We didn't do that. We followed what the scripture says, and we did take care of it. And we were at shalom by the end of the night. So my just whole thing is that I'm just frustrated, because I didn't want it to happen, of course. And sometimes misconceptions and, you know, people in there, you know, you don't know if somebody's real, okay, are they still going to be mad about it, or blah, blah, blah. Dealing with all those things, it did kind of just send me in a dark place, because I don't want it to be that, you know what I mean? I want it to be a God. I want it to be shalom. And sometimes you are going to have disagreements with your brothers and sisters. And as much as I don't want to argue with my mama, if we have disagreements, I know at the end of the day, that's my mama. And I love my mama. I'm going to call my mama. We're going to talk, and it's going to be over, and we're going to laugh about it later. And I should be able to do that with the same thing with my brothers and sisters. And, you know, so that's important. And we can't shy away from people because something didn't, you know, because we might have been irritated or slick offended, or, oh, I don't like this, or we can't do that. That's what the enemy wants. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't forget all the good that happened because of this one moment. You know, we have to learn to deal with one another. We have to learn to get through these things. And it helped me to realize a lot about myself. And I think it helped everybody to realize a lot about themselves and everybody else. And I think that that's something that we needed. And it's definitely something. It was definitely edifying, and it helped me to realize a lot about myself. And even afterwards, when I was so frustrated, I'm just kind of like, I was just throwing my hands up with everything, because I was just irritated. And I almost got to the point where I'm just like, I'm tired of everything. Like, to almost like, I just don't even want to be obedient. I don't even want to be in order, because I don't want to have to deal with certain stuff like this. But that's wrong. Like, you can't have that type of attitude. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially over nothing. You know, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest about our opinions and how we feel about certain things. especially during the time. You're not going to always agree with somebody. You're not going to always agree with every single thing, like, you know, about life, not even about scripture, just about life or how you do things or how, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just, you just might not always agree. It's okay. So let's relax. You know what I mean? We don't have to get upset about certain things. So yeah, and it just helped us learn a lot. And though it was frustrating and it was an emotional time, it was emotional. It definitely had its highs and its lows and its highs, and you know, those things happen. You know, they happen. The apostles had their disagreements. That, you know, if we expect to just be walking and having kumbaya and everybody's happy and skipping and laughing all the time, then we're not in a reality. We're going to have things that we might have to talk about, discuss. That's okay. Like, it's not that crucial. We don't have to feel like, oh, because we had a disagreement, now everything is just, it's just over. Like, no, it's not even that serious. But we can take it that way because our emotions and our feelings and our, you know, that's just how humans act sometimes. Like, it's just, oh, woe is me, or oh, this and this. But it's like, no, things happen. It's about how you deal with them. Can we deal with that? Can we deal with the different personalities? Can we deal with them in a mature way? Do we have to feel like it's, you know, we can deal with it. So, yeah. And that's just something that I learned. And I learned a lot about myself. And even, you know, with my husband, you know, we had our hiccups in the moment of, you know, when you have a lot of people here, when you have a lot of different personalities, you and your husband have a certain way of doing things normally that you always do, and that, you know, you have a certain way that your house runs. Sometimes when you have a way that you are when it's you and your husband. Sometimes when you have other people, of course, the stress and the, you know, trying to get everything situated, trying to make sure everything, a lot of times that can cause stress on you too. And some things that would never really bother you might start bothering you all of a sudden. Like, you know, sometimes you can let other people's thoughts or opinions start affecting you, when normally that's, well, this is how we always operate. Why now am I frustrated? You know what I mean? Like, you know, so even us learning how to know how to deal with one another and still function and act the same way that we normally do when other people are not here, and not allowing outside things to affect that function that we normally have. And that works for us, and just, it might not work for other people, or other people might think it's different, but it works for us, and we know what we have and we know what we do. So that function and that order that we have with one another, and that relationship, that bond that we have, doesn't need to part or sever or whatever because there's other personalities or other people here. We have to stand strong and firm, and that's something that we were having to learn as well. And I think we definitely learned it. And, you know, we had our hiccup, and we definitely got through it, and we talked, and we got it together. And we, you know, we're seeing, you know, it's beautiful to be able to see that correction, and for the Father to correct you. You know, honestly, at first I was frustrated with the correction that the Father was showing me, and I was running from it. And then I had to not do that. I had to turn around and say, no, you know what I'm saying? I have to receive this correction. I have to receive, and we have to, you know, everything, not just with when it comes to me and my husband, but every relationship needs work. Every relationship needs care and love and everything. Just, you know, like with me and my husband, it might not have the same work and work that I will put into the relationship with my husband, but it still has that work. Every relationship that you have with a sister, with a brother, it's going to have to take work. It's going to take time. It's going to take us both working and communicating together. Just like you people are with their husbands years and years and years, and are still learning how to communicate and how to deal with one another in a way that is functional. So of course you're going to have to do that with your brother and with your sisters, and even with your children. You have to learn to deal with each other in a way that functions properly. And I learned a lot of that this time. And I did want this video to be extra long, but it did end up being long. So I hope everybody was able to get through it. But this was our Passover experience. It definitely had its ups and its downs, but I can say that we learned a lot from it. And I know that with my brothers and sisters that, you know, I love them, and that, you know, you get to learn, you just learn so much. But yes, we definitely had an experience. And honestly, I don't think that I do think that there are things that we could have done differently to maybe have calmed the situation down earlier. Yes, absolutely. So those are the things that, you know, we take with us. But I do think that we have learned, and I do think that it was edifying. And I do think that a lot of stuff was done scriptural. And, you know, even the fact that we were able to get to that shalom before the night, you know what I mean? And before, we didn't leave angry. We didn't leave like, oh, that, you know what I mean? We didn't leave like that. And we had so many good, you know, we got to learn so much. And sometimes when you are coming together, sometimes some people can have walls built up, or have, you know, just slowly putting those walls down and just enjoying each other's company and just enjoying each other's different personalities. We're not all the same at all, but that's what makes us unique. We have different parts of the body that we have to do. So if we're all the same, then that's not going to work. We have some people whose personalities are different, and we have to embrace those and love all of that and deal with all of that in a way that is conducive to the body and not hindering the body. So that's what we learned. And yeah, so shalom.